Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers found sometime last week has been inspected in Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the K-Ghost Radio Network and its website are those of the host, guest, and participants, and they are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcast, management, or advertisers of the network. The show is found under LJ Broadcasting Network. UFO Talk Radio does not necessarily promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and they are not intended to treat or diagnose and or claim to cure any disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice. All music is purchased and owned by LJ Broadcasting.
I got the windows rolled down, got the radio up, and I'm heading out of Vegas tonight. And it's 1:30 on a 4-day run, and the desert is a welcome sight. I can see you there in that dress you wear, and it's keeping my foot on the gas. I drink a gallon of Joe just to make it back home and hold you in my arms at last. There's a full moon shining, lighting up the highway like a beacon to you. If I can make it on time past a moonlit state lamp, will it be so right on through?
Some fun right along with us, broadcasting live in the deep desert of Nevada. Welcome to the Glenn Lyric Show.
And we are live, everyone. Oh, yes. From deep in the desert and wonderful Nevada. Deep in the desert, by the way. And it's dark in the desert sometimes, and it can get cold. That's why I'm wearing a shirt tonight, because it got cold in the studio because the temperature is dropping. But although we had a nice day, I must tell you for sure, a lot of things going on. We have some real great special guests coming up. I'm telling you, I've been waiting for this. KRISTY and Jenny Summers of the Soul Sisters. The Soul Sisters, yeah, they're twins. Apparently, they are, well, you've read about them. I'm sure you have. The paranormal psychic investigators. I mean, they're picking up moment. I mean, it's unbelievable. And these guys are, well, these ladies, have really got it together. I've been watching a lot of stuff on the YouTubes and on doing research on what have you on the internet. And I have found some very interesting groups that do this type of stuff. But these ladies really have it together. And they're going to tell us how they got started, what goes on in the world of, well, paranormal, the other side, ghosts or demons, what have you. We're going to find out. We're going to ask some questions on some questions we never asked anybody before, and we'll get those answers. But I must say, I'm excited to have them on. They'll be on in a couple of minutes here. We're going to go to a little bit of a commercial. And I also want to thank Bob Ewing out here locally for everything he's helped us with. Let me do this. I'm going to mention these people. Great folks. Sheldon Battery. We have our K-Ghost bus, the RV, and he supplied batteries for us. And my God, I want to know about batteries or anything about batteries, how batteries work, how to store them cold, he'll tell you. And you can call them at 702-262-8180. And that's Sheldon Battery. Now, these are great people. I've known Carl for years and Cheryl. They're actively neighbors too of us up here. They just do many good things for the community. All right, we're back after this.
You ignore the signs, so you enable.
You don't want to sound like a hypocrite, so you enable.
You don't want to alienate your child, so you enable.
But if you think they're trying drugs, you shouldn't be afraid.
You're the parent.
So you are able.
You are strong,
So you are able. There are others just like you.
so you are able.
And we can help, so you are able.
Get help at drugfree.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America.
Violence, theft, drugs, graffiti. It's all part of joining a gang. In times like these, we need to protect our children and our community from gangs. Gangs often prey on unsupervised teens with low self-esteem, who perform poorly in school, who seek a sense of belonging, or are simply bored. Joining a gang often involves violent hazing rituals. Once in a gang, members can become alienated from their families, school, and friends. Drugs, guns, and malicious activity are common elements in gangs. Trying to leave a gang can be a difficult and dangerous process. The best way to get out of a gang is never to join one. Protect kids from being recruited by a gang. Know who they're hanging out with. Involve kids in after-school activities and provide positive role models. Help reduce gang activities in your community by working with local law enforcement and school systems. Don't let a kid you know get involved with gangs. Visit ncpc.org to learn more or contact your local law enforcement agency.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
Ghost, paranormal experiences, investigations. Are you ready? Are you ready for the Soul Sisters? Unbelievable stories coming up. Oh boy, here we go. Hello, KRISTY and Jenny Summers. Are you with me?
We are with you. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, fantastic. I've been waiting for this, well, for about a month now. And we got you.
Yeah, you have us.
Well,
congratulations.
Yes. And I know you guys have been very, very busy in what you do and also your interviews and stuff. And sometimes it's hard to get a hold of you. Finally we did. And I would like to ask you, the first question is, what made you two? Now you're twins, right?
We are.
You're twin sisters. I'm a twin too, by the way.
Oh, really?
I have a sister. Yes. And maybe that's why this is supposed to happen. I don't know how that works. Anyway, how did you get started, you two? Tell me.
Well, we actually started as a girls trip. Soul Sisters Paranormal was formed as an all-female team of 5 investigators, and it's made up of Jenny and myself, our younger sister, and 2 female family friends. And we would routinely get together to have girls' weekends across the country. We'd meet up and go to different cities and such. And we've always had a belief in the paranormal. So we decided that on one of these adventures, one of these girls' trips, we went to Moundsville, West Virginia, where the West Virginia State Penitentiary is located. Mm-hmm. And we had the opportunity to stay the night in that location. And we did a private paranormal investigation. And we left that experience with what we felt was such compelling evidence that we decided to formalize Soul Sisters Paranormal mm-hmm. and just go around the country to haunted and historic locations and tell the narrative of those places, as well as find any unexplainable evidence.
Right now, you have a degree in criminal justice and also public affairs, correct?
We do.
That's great.
We both hold advanced degrees. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And so just not some couple sisters going out looking for ghosts. No, you guys are really... I mean, although you do that, but you guys are out there and you're really into this and you studied this stuff. I mean, paranormal, it's a big field now. Before it was not, and you couldn't even get a degree in it. I mean, they didn't look at it. They didn't, as you know. So here you guys are, and it was your first experience. What made you think that was a ghost or whatever you saw? Do you see it, hear it, or did you touch it, smell it? What happened?
Well, since our first investigation, all of the above. But that very first investigation at West Virginia, it was a very rudimentary investigation for us. We had a couple of digital voice recorders. We had a couple of digital cameras and a night vision video camera. And so we went into that investigation, again, very raw, didn't have obviously any experience. But when we're in that location and you know that you're the only people locked down in that location, yet we were hearing footsteps coming at us in the darkness. We were hearing door slams, footsteps running up stairwells. We heard those. We captured a couple of EVPs, electronic voice phenomena voices that night. And for us, yeah, it was a very compelling night. And that's really what propelled us to investigate this further by going to different locations.
And what did you both hear in that voice? What did it say? I mean,
well, on that evening, I believe that one said something like "Come back here." That was the first one that we captured that night. Really, it was the footsteps that were extremely compelling. We had a couple of K2 sessions that were pretty interesting as well. But I believe the main EVP that we caught that night was something to the effect of "Come back here."
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A lot of different. No, that's fine. We had a lot of different Christy's point in the moment experiences, which made it compelling for us. So we like to get those in the moment experiences. Certainly, whatever we capture on our equipment is compelling, and we can share with the audience. But what we experience in the moment, I think, is the most compelling, at least for me, because you get that, to Christy's point, that kind of raw, that the voices, the footsteps, and you know that the place is alive. And I think that's what's the most compelling for me.
Wow. Now, as we know, they're dead. You're talking to the dead. But the place is buzzing with energy and what have you.
Exactly.
What is this K thing meter you're talking about? Can you explain it to my audience?
Absolutely. So some of the equipment that we have with us are those that paranormal investigators use, but for the most part, they've been repurposed from tools that other industries use. So the K2 meter is actually designed to find electricity in an area. So it's a small hand device. It has a light array on top of it. If it detects no energy or a very small amount of energy in the room, it stays on green. But as the energy level spikes, it will advance up to red on that light array. So the theory is, if we take it into a location where we know that there's no power, and yet we're getting high spikes on these K2 meters, that could be an indication of spirit activity communicating with us, because theoretically it should not go off if there's no power in the environment. And so we've used these devices with a great amount of to get compelling evidence when we go to these locations.
Right. Now, what if it's a thunderstorm or something in the area? Do you pick that up also, or?
Every now and then we'll get a spike on something like that. To be honest with you, I can't remember really an investigation where we've been in a thunderstorm. Have you? No. And it's interesting, to Christy's point, what we did when we first got these meters, I always like to test them out, and to the degree that we can control the environment, at least know what's happening in the environment.
Right.
And so with these K2 meters, where we did some investigation was actually in our kitchen. And so what will make this meter spike to red is the microwave. And so when we hold it against the microwave, sometimes the refrigerator will make it spike to orange and kind of those shades. But we really get a lot of activity on that meter from the microwave. And so when we're at a location, to Chrissy's point, and there's no electricity running, it's the electricity is off, the power is off, and we're getting spikes on this thing of orange and red, there's something going on, and that's unexplainable to us.
Have you guys ever seen a materialization?
We have, yes, we actually have. We've actually captured it on camera as well. There's been 3 instances where we've captured it on camera. One was at Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia, and the other was in Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in Petross, Tennessee, and then one to the old Gilchrist County Jail in Trenton, Florida. And then the one at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, that was actually very compelling because we all saw it in the moment. There were 5 of us on that investigation. It was Jenny and myself, one of our team members, Kim, and then Miranda from Ghost Biker Explorations, and her camera guy, Josh. And so we were the only people in this gymnasium, and we had some pieces of equipment that have those light arrays. They were in the middle of the gym, and we were standing about 15 feet back, and we all saw a shadow figure pass in front of all of our equipment that was sitting there in the middle of the room. And so that is extremely compelling because we had the area locked down. There was nobody else on the campus that night. And so it was something that we all saw in the moment.
I see. Oh, I understand. So, and is that the only type of equipment that you guys use? Is cheater or other?
No, we have probably about 12 different cases of equipment. So we've got K2 meters, we've got night vision cameras, we wear body cameras, police issued body cameras.
Right.
That will timestamp where we are in a location so we can cross-reference anything. We have digital voice recorders, digital cameras in terms of photography, flash cameras. What else? We have the Spirit Box, we have the REM Pod, we have an EDI box. So the thought behind that is, and it sounds like a lot of equipment, but when we're traveling across the country, we're based in Florida, so when we're traveling to like Massachusetts or Iowa or Texas, we want to make sure, and we only maybe will have one shot at this.
Right.
We want to make sure that we have as much coverage as we can with essentially eyes and ears, even if we're not physically in a room or in a cell block or something like that. We want to make sure that we have the areas covered.
One of my folks on the internet, I'm getting a lot of hits from Canada, by the way. I want to say hello to Joyce out there, Joy, and a couple other folks out there. Numbers are starting to climb real fast. One asks if do you clear houses? Do you clean houses? Do you clean from spirits coming in? Do you get rid of them also?
Well, hello to Canada first, and thank you for listening today. And thank you for the question. We actually don't clear houses. What we'll do is we will get called in to private residences or private businesses, and we will actually do the investigation. We will confirm that there's paranormal activity, or we will debunk what they're feeling as environmental. So, for example, if there's light pollution that they don't really account for, or noise pollution that they really didn't think about, we can debunk stuff as well. But if we do find that there's compelling paranormal evidence in a private business or a private house, we will talk to the homeowner about their options. And if they decide that they want it cleared or, that energy to be removed, then we have people that we will call to actually perform that service on our behalf, because that's just something that we don't feel that we're versed in to do that service.
You have like a Rolodex of priests or whatever. I don't know, man, how it works, but I know one thing: I will not go into a building. At night. I don't do that type of stuff. I don't have to, because they just come naturally. But they'll walk right through my house, and I go, okay, that's the way it is. And watch your head as you walk through, whatever. But have you guys ever had anything follow you home or attach themselves to you, or some item that you have?
Really, we haven't had that experience. I'll tell you, when we go into a location, we really set our intentions before we go into that location. We'll say a prayer of protection before we go in. We'll say a prayer of protection when we come out. Right. And then when we go into the location, we verbally set boundaries with any spirit that's in the location. I.e., we say, you are not allowed to touch us unless we give you permission. You are not allowed to follow us home. We don't provoke. We don't, go in with chest thumping and bravado saying we're not going to believe you're here unless you throw a chair across the room. That's really not how we operate.
Yeah.
We go in with the legitimate mindset of actually wanting to tell the story of any spirit that may be willing to communicate with us that night. And that's really how we set those boundaries and set that intention when we go in. And to build on what Kristy's saying, we're also there to tell the story of the location. And we consider any location that we go to honored guests, right? We consider ourselves to be honored guests in that location. And so we respect it, we treat it as such, and we honor the location and whatever may be there. So if something is wanting to reveal itself or to show itself or to share their story with us, that's what we're there to capture and hopefully document on their behalf.
Yeah. Wow. So it's kind of like open door to them to talk to you, and you're the guest, and the tea party starts, more or less.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay, give me some stories. Give me something. What is the best one? You have a bunch of them. I've seen them here listed. And go ahead.
We do, and to Jenny's point earlier, it's one of these places. It's this thing that we do that we get to experience history in a very unique way. And so all of the places that we've gone to are very historical. They have a historical story, and they're very different. So, for example, going to the Villisca Axe Murder House is a lot different than going to the St. Augustine Lighthouse.
Yeah.
But yet they both have their place in history as far as we're concerned.
Right.
So as far as paranormal activity, for me personally, I would have to say that Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia is one of the best locations to, again, one for the history. It's a Revolutionary War fort. It saw action in the Civil War as well, as a place where prisoners were held. During this investigation, there were 5 investigators, again, all female. There were 5 of us. No, actually, sorry, there were 4 of us that night. Again, we're all female. And Fort Mifflin has what's called casemates. And these are subterranean rooms that are built to hold munitions during a war. So they're very sturdy. No light pollution can get in. No noise pollution can get in. And so we really had control of those environments. So during the night, when we started our investigation, we deployed our stationary equipment in all of these casemates. And for the first couple of hours, we weren't really feeling anything or getting what we felt was compelling evidence. But just coincidentally, across the river, a bar started setting off fireworks, and the reverberation started coming across the water, and it sounded like cannon fire and gunshots and all of that. So after that experience, it really essentially the fort came alive. And we were capturing audible voices we heard in the moment. We captured a bunch of EVPs on our stationary equipment. For example, we were in a casemate, and I said, "What's the name of your president?" And we captured the name Lincoln. It was said by a male's voice, and again, there's no male in the area. And then one of the most compelling pieces of evidence from that night was from casemate 11. Again, this is a subterranean casemate. It's about 7 feet underground, and it has a small stairwell that you use to get down into it.
Right.
And we had a night vision video camera pointing into the room, and it was sitting beside a laser grid. And during the night, when we were across the fort, a shadow figure walks from the right side of the room through the wall to the left side of the room, and it cuts off all of the laser grid beams as it does so. And so that was the first time we actually captured a shadow figure on camera, and it was one of the ones that I think is one of our best investigations.
Yeah, and all of the investigations that we go to Kristy's point, are exceedingly unique. And there's something different and exciting about each and every one of them. And here again, to Kristy's point, it's fun to be at a Civil War fort or to the St. Augustine Lighthouse. Not many people get to say that they spent the night in these really cool locations.
Really?
Yeah.
How much fun. Has any of the spirits called you by name?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, I think this is Jenny. I think the one of the coolest experiences for me was we were at the Old Southern Funeral Home, and this was in Mississippi, Kosciuszko, Mississippi. And for some reason that night, all of our equipment just said Jenny. I think we got 5 or 6
Jennies.
Yeah,
wow.
that were coming out of the spirit boxes that we caught on dinners. I don't know if there was another Jenny that was associated with the location, but I took it, as a personal endorsement.
Hello.
of me being there.
I would too.
It was fun. So, yeah, we definitely hear our names being called routinely.
Wow.
Yeah, and for me, this is Kristy. For me, we were at Hales Bar Dam, which is in Guild, Tennessee, and Jenny and I were the only 2 people. There's a series of tunnels that run underneath this dam, and Jenny and I were the only 2 people at this junction of these 2 tunnels. And I just yelled down the tunnel. I said, "Can anybody say my name?" And this male voice goes, "Kristy." And we caught it on voice recorder. We heard it in the moment, and it was, again, extremely compelling because there was no men there.
Compelling? I'd be frightly out of there. And if the guy starts singing, I'd be more scared. Tell you the truth. Gosh. Now, when that happens, do you, of course, your lights and all your special equipment's going, so maybe you might up and move again. But does the voice go along with the movement too, or just sometimes just that, or just the other, or whatever they give you, I guess?
Sometimes there are those correlations between movement and voices. I'll go back to Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. We were in a location called The Hole, which is there. It is also a subterranean room where they held the prisoners in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
And so it was a very dark room. So we were actually downstairs in that room, and above us, we started hearing footsteps. Again, there was nobody else in there. We started hearing footsteps above us. And then later that night, we captured some voices in that same room. So it was one of those where we could audibly hear the voices. And then when we went back and listened to our voice recorders, that was also coupled with EVPs.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm sure other guests have said this as well, the holy grail of something like paranormal activities that you look is all equipment going off at the same time as you're experiencing it in the moment. So the more equipment that you can have going off, it just seems that there's a validation, a cross correlation of all of those different pieces of equipment, and then you can say with much more certainty, with much more validity, that something is going on in that environment.
Oh yeah.
You can never profess to have 100% of the answers, but something different and unexplained is going on in that moment. And so often the most compelling pieces of evidence for us is when we get EVP on the voice recorder, we get a hit on the K2, the REM pod's going off, and if something walks across our camera. We live for those moments for sure.
Oh, wow. Have you ever seen any animals like cats or dogs, pets or something like that? Have you ever experienced that type of spirit?
We've heard some. For me, and this is crazy. For me personally, I do believe I saw the spirit of one of our dogs that passed immediately after she passed. So that was interesting to me. I'd never seen a animal spirit before, but I'm fully convinced that I saw her. But we have heard different animals that we can't explain. Dogs, a couple of cats. But for me personally, that's the only one that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being twins, it's come up on my screen here. Being twins, do you both have the equal psychic ability, do you think?
I think between us, we do. We're not going to really profess that we're psychics. We're not mediums. We have empathy, but I'm not going to call us empaths per se.
Mm-hmm.
But between the two of us, we do have a connection that to me is unexplainable. Jenny's my best friend, so being with her and being able to do this with her is something that is truly unique.
Cool.
And I think the aspect of being twins really allows us to get some things that maybe other teams wouldn't.
Yeah,
I would echo that and just say that the bond that we share, KRISTY and I as twins, is certainly unique in terms of siblings. And then doing what we do in terms of the paranormal, we're able to go into a space and just kind of intuitively be able to communicate with each other without verbalizing.
Right.
Which I think
Yeah.
helps the evidence.
Yeah. I think you both probably feel more secure than the average team member.
Oh,
am I correct?
I would say for sure. Yeah, we do. Yeah, I would say that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because here again, growing up together, knowing each other so well, having that bond,
Right.
we're able to kind of do things that other teams might not.
Right. My twin sister, when she gets hurt or something's dramatic in her life, I need to make a phone call.
and that's us.
Yeah.
I'll share a story from high school. We were. It was probably 11th grade, I guess, 11th grade, and I was at a social event that the high school was putting on, and Jenny did not attend that event that night, and so it was probably about 11 o'clock at night, and I was driving home, and this was before the age of cell phones. And so
not that old.
Well, okay, before the age of us having a cell phone.
A lot of kids don't know what a phone is. Go ahead.
There you go. So before we had a cell phone, but so I was actually driving home, and Jenny for some reason just got out of bed and started getting dressed. And my mom said, "What are you doing?" And Jenny said, "I think Kristy's going to be in a car accident, so I need to be ready to go."
Wow.
And I was in a car accident that night, and Jenny was pretty much on the road before I even had a chance to call the police. So we do have that type of a bond. Yep.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. We're going to be going to a commercial. It'll take a couple minutes. And again, we'll be back with Jenny and KRISTY, as they are called. And that's a group, and they are fantastic. But we got more coming your way, everybody. So stay tuned. We shall be back. Oh, yeah. We'll be back right after this.
Afraid to report violent crimes. In times like these, choosing to report a crime or helping the police can be a difficult decision. A no-snitching culture has sprung up in our communities, making it unpopular and sometimes even dangerous to report a crime. Do the right thing by calling 911 or your local crime tip line. If you're the victim of a crime, report it. If you know about a crime, report it. To learn more about how to do the right thing, visit ncpc.org or contact your local law enforcement agency.
A message from the U.S. Department of Justice, National Crime Prevention Council, and the Ad Council.
There's no typical meth user. I was from an upper middle class family. Meth is terribly addictive. My first time using it, I was hooked. There was no turning back. I lost my job. I was homeless. I never thought I'd see my family again. I have a great fear of meth because it took so much of me. I mean, it took everything. Meth took over my soul.
Visit our website at drugfree.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America.
And now, back to the Glenn Levy Show.
And we are back, recapping everybody. With the Soul Sisters, KRISTY and Jenny Summers. We were talking about some of their adventures, some things where they've been talking to the other side, spirits, ghosts, what have you. And I would like to hear some more. Jenny, you guys still with us?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, fantastic. But you get harmonized together. I love it. You almost sound alike, you know.
We definitely have a voice that sounds alike.
Yeah. So you could be either or, and I would never know.
We wouldn't trick you like that.
So give me something else, and then when you're telling the story there, what about the mortuary, the place that you're
at? The funeral home?
The funeral home, yeah.
Yeah, that was certainly an interesting one. It was interesting because, and some of this happens on occasion. Some of the locations that we go to, it just seems like the occupants got up and just left one day. And so they left behind equipment, they left behind artifacts. So there were pictures and, again, artifacts that the mortuary used, embalming fluid, those types of things that were in the funeral home, caskets and such. And so it was a really interesting location to be at. There was certainly a feel to it. We had a really interesting session that we seemed to have some type of communication with a lady who may have been buried there, or at least had her funeral services there, I guess I should say. And so it was just a really interesting experience. We had not done a funeral home before, so that was a good one for us to do. Yeah.
So it's like they just walked out and everything was there. Of course, it's all old and stuff, but I mean.
Correct. So like when you went up to the embalming room, there were watches and chains and reading glasses and false teeth and stuff that, had been taken from some of these bodies that never got claimed by family members. So, and to Jenny's point, embalming fluid and such was still there. And so it was definitely, like Jenny said, it's something that was different.
Very different.
You really don't think of a funeral home as a place that would be haunted because there was really no connection to the spirit itself or to the body itself. But when you really think about it, the emotion that goes through a funeral home, it's not great sadness. It's death, it's loss, it's pain, it's anguish. And so when you really think about it, that feeling is really permeated into the walls.
Yes.
And so for us, it was an interesting investigation, as James said, because we were getting readings on our equipment. We had audible voices that we captured on our stationary voice recorders. Our spirit box was giving very compelling answers as well. And so it's just one of those very unique investigations that we were allowed to go on.
What was the spirit box saying?
So for those in your audience that doesn't know, a spirit box is basically an AM/FM radio that's been transmitted to very, very quickly sweep through frequencies. So when you turn it on, it sounds like as it's sweeping through. The idea being that spirits can use the white noise to communicate with us. And this was one of the locations where one of the questions we asked was, can you say one of our names? And it said Jenny. And that was extremely compelling.
Everybody loves Jenny.
You gotta love Jenny. Jenny is a sweetheart.
That's great. I love it. Gosh, yeah, but think about that. Now, was it Poltergeist I saw where the chains and all the coins came out of the ceiling and stuff and landed? You remember that? And the ectoplasm or whatever you have with it. That's what that reminded me of. That.
And kind of to that point, Glenn, Larry, it's interesting because maybe it's the way we approach it. I don't know, but we've never felt anything demonic or evil or threatening. Every entity or every spirit that we feel that we have encountered has been gracious. If they've communicated with us, it's been almost thoughtful communication, I guess I should say. And it's been that almost it's a validation to me anyway, that the life beyond is not, it doesn't have to be something scary. There's some kind moments that we've had. We've encountered children, we've encountered men, certainly women. It appears of all ages, at least what we can tell. And so it's one, thought-provoking for us. It's very thought-provoking for us. But also, like I said, validation that the afterlife, that's what you want to call it, or spirit life, is not, it doesn't have to be evil or heavy or demonic or anything like that.
Exactly. And you should remember, as you know, we have good and bad in our world. There's good and bad in their world, too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to Jenny's point, when we approach these investigations, we go in with the premise that what we are speaking with or trying to communicate with at some point had a human existence.
Right.
It had a life and then it died, and for some reason its spirit is remaining near the veil.
Right.
And so we go in, and the very core of human existence is to be recognized and acknowledged. So when we go into these locations, we do that. We recognize and acknowledge that we're trying to communicate with. And I think that's the reason why we have been, one, successful in capturing unexplained evidence, but also that evidence is not anything that's malicious or demonic or, to Jenny's point, threatening. That's not what we look for, so that's not what we get.
That's great. What type of prayer do you say? Can you say the prayer? St. Michael prayer?
It's not really a formalized prayer. We do say elements of that, but really for us, it's one of those in the moment where we just kind of bow our heads and say, Jesus, please protect us.
Right.
We acknowledge that we're going into this environment, and we're communicating with spirits and that sort of thing. So please protect us and just keep us safe during this investigation. So it's really those type of elements that we say in our prayer.
I pray every night, and I have the prayer of St. Michael for protection. I've been around a lot of stuff in my day, and I don't want anything like that happen to me. My first experience was with my mother when she passed away. I was like maybe 7 or 8. I forget how old I was, but young. And of course, my father got everything about her out of the house after that. It's really weird. I guess to clean the memory or whatever. It's a weird process. But I was upstairs, of course, sleeping in my bed, and I kept feeling something pull on my covers. It's a cat in here, or what the heck, And then I felt like something moving in my bed, and then I felt something sitting down next to my knees and my lower legs. I opened my eyes, which I did not many times. And I opened my eyes, and there was my mother smiling at me, looking down at me, smiling at me. And it scared me. So she just smiled and she disappeared. And that was it.
Oh. Well, and that could be right. So And I have a point that that is similar, and that's an amazing story. But you know, I think that she was able to communicate with you because she needed to let you know that she's okay, and probably to give you peace with that story.
Let me tell you the night before, the night that it happened. And then you can figure this one out. Very weird. She had her massive heart attack. My father got downstairs to call the ambulance, whatever. They came up and they pronounced her expired. And a kid my age didn't know what that meant. Expired. And you kids stay in your rooms. My two sisters and myself. Of course, I didn't listen in those days very, very well. And so I walked across the room. My mother's hand was out of the bed, you know, and I went up to her and grabbed her hand. And I said, Mommy, and of course, you know, and she opened her eyes. And these are the words she said. Remember, you're a giver, provider, and entertainer. And I'm 9 years old. I know nothing of that. And that has been my life.
Right.
That's the true story.
That is such a compelling story.
Yeah. So I've always had this gift. My sisters have also, and some folks in my family. But yeah, it's pretty emotional. And you're dealing with spirits of either unhappy being away, or just confused, or just don't know where they're at, I guess. But do you ask them to go to the light?
We don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, the locations that we go to that are not private, like a private residence or a private business.
Okay.
You know, because we don't own those locations, we just don't feel that is our right to do that. And so we've never tried to cross a spirit over in any of those locations. And again, you know, as I said earlier, if there was a private business or a residence, we would call somebody in that's more qualified to do that.
Have any of these spirits asked you both for help?
No, not so much. You know, the only one that would come close, we captured an EVP in the old Gilchrist County Jail in Trenton, Florida. And this was one we did not hear in the moment. We only heard it after we went back and listened to the audio from that night. There was a male voice in this back room, and it was a whisper. It said, "Come help me." And so that's the closest that we've heard something like that.
That's pretty right there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. There was also one in Hales Bar Dam that just reminds me of your question, because there was a young boy, and so KRISTY had asked something along the lines of, "Why are you still here?" And the young voice responds, "Because I'm stuck." And so it just seemed like there was a kind of a recognition by that spirit or that entity that for some reason he's here, right? He's here for a reason, and there's some reason that he's still in that location.
He's stuck.
Certainly unexplained to us, but that's what the voice revealed anyway.
Do you believe that, both of you, just your comments on this one, those that are stuck because they don't know where to go, or they're stuck because they did something wrong, or they have not developed the next step, or is this purgatory? Or, I mean, you see where I'm coming from?
You know, for us, we kind of operate on the feeling again that what we're communicating with was human.
Right.
And I think the three reasons, or the three premises that we operate under are: the first one is they have unfinished business, right? There's something that they have to fulfill or complete before they whatever's next. The second is that they are stuck. They know that they've passed, but for some reason they can't find whatever's next. And I do think we see that more with children in that respect.
Yeah.
And then the third one is fear of retribution or punishment for the life that they lived on earth. And I think that's why we see a lot of, we communicate a lot with spirits in jails and prisons, that they're more content to stay where they're at rather than move on to whatever's next.
Right. I don't want to die.
I guess I would add to that, just coming back to the prayer of protection and everything, and full disclosure, we're both Christians,
Great.
and so we believe in that tenet and that faith. And so I think underlying KRISTY's three answers, is the fact that we don't know. We don't know the answers.
Yeah.
But what we're doing is, I think, giving some interesting information. At least we're putting our equipment out there. We're letting
terms of what they want to believe.
Right. Gosh. Boy, I guess if they want to tell a story, they will, though. I mean,
Yeah,
are they
do.
are they very long though? Are they just help me? Goodbye. Hello. I mean, are they KRISTY or Jenny? I mean, if they're calling my name, I'm gone. But
Well, we've had several instances where we have full phrases that come through.
That's
and I'll give you two examples. The first one, we were at the Exchange Hotel in Gordonsville, Virginia, and this was a hotel that was built before the Civil War because of the railroad lines. That there was a juncture there in Gordonsville, and then during the Civil War, is repurposed into a Civil War hospital where over 750 verified deaths, both Union and Confederate, happened in that hospital. So when we investigated there were 5 investigators that night, again, all female, and half of the hotel is set up to look like Civil War hospital rooms, and the other half is set up to look like they did when it was in its hotel days. So we had a voice recorder sitting on a bed, those rooms made up to look like a hotel, and we just left it running. It was running on the bed all night, and in one instance, we had 3 investigators in the house and 2 were outside, and we captured a male's voice saying, "I don't know, I'll be back at 4:30." And again, extremely compelling. It's extremely clear. There were no men in the house at all that night. And then about 2 hours later, we captured a child's voice saying, "Hi, this is my bed." And again, extremely compelling. And because there are no children anywhere close to the property at that point in time, because it's about 2 in the morning. So,
now, did you go back? Did you go back at 4 o'clock?
No, because that was on our stationary equipment, and we didn't know it had happened. None of us heard it in the moment.
Gotcha.
So we didn't know this had happened until we had gotten home the next day and was listening to the audio. Again, extremely compelling. And then we were in the Ma Barker house, which is in Ocklawaha, Florida. And this was the house that was the scene of the 1935 shootout between Ma and Fred Barker and members of the FBI. The FBI tracked into this location that they were using as a hideout.
Yep.
And on January 16th, 1935, they had this shootout, and Ma and Fred were killed in that shootout. So we were the first team to actually investigate that location. To date, we've been the only team to investigate that location. And we were using the spirit box up in the room where Ma and Fred's body were found. And there, we had complete control of the environment because the house sits on about 40 acres by itself. There's no power to it. There's no roads to it. You need a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get back to it because of the Florida sand. So it's completely isolated. No water, no power, no nothing. It's just sitting there vacant. And so we had our spirit box up in that kill room, which is what we called it. And when we turned it on and we sat back, it was across the room from us, and immediately it started. So we had a guy's voice come through that says, "Someone's up here," and then another voice says, "I can't see him." And then another voice said, "Fred," and then a second voice said, "That was Kate," which was Mom's original name. And then I said, "What happened in this room?" And it said, "They murdered us. We the ones dead," which is extremely compelling because that is their story.
Wow, is that?
Yeah. So to your question, we have gotten full phrases and things that are extremely germane to the situation or to the event that happened in that location.
On our line coming up here, people ask me, do they know that they're dead?
Good question. I think it depends. I think some may know. I think the way that and the reason I think that is just the way they interact with our equipment. And I think that some don't. And this is the difference between having a residual type of an experience, where it's almost like a record that keeps playing over and over and over in time.
Yes, residuals.
And so it's something that's kind of left behind at the location, that residual.
Well, this,
go ahead.
the one you just had, we're talking about, that's, they know what's going on.
Yeah.
And apparently
exactly.
they can see other through the veil, and maybe they get mixed up or whatever, but they're talking to each other. And
exactly.
they talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. So there is that sense of intelligence for a lot of these locations that we go to. I mean, when they're calling our names, for heaven's sakes, that is
intelligence.
Extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I do think, to Jenny's point, there are those that could be confused
that they don't know that they're dead. But the majority of ones that have an intelligent conversation with us or leave an intelligent response on our voice recorders or our stationary cameras, and I do know that they are.
Well, we're going to open lines. I'm going to put this up here. It's the same number because it's 1114, but it's such fun to listen to this guy. We're opening our lines. Bye-bye.
To call UFO Talk Radio, The Glenn Larry Show, deep in the dark desert of Nevada, call 702-874-1114. North of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. West of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. And south of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. And east of the Rockies, call 702-874-1114. First time callers, call 702-874-1114. And if you just want to talk to the Glenn Larry Show, call 702-874-1114.
And we are back, everybody. And we are taking those calls, by the way, open lines. I hear those calls going up. You can talk to Jenny and KRISTY Summers, the Soul Sisters, and what an experience tonight we're having. Boy, Bonnie Parker and Bonnie and Clyde, the folks that they hit out in the house. And then
Mon Fred Barker.
Yeah, Mom Fred Barker. Oh boy, what a story that was. I saw the whole history thing about that. And they shot him in that room. That's where they died.
They did. And you know, it was interesting because they had rented that house. They'd rented it in November of 1934. The shootout happened in January of 1935. And the owner who rented it to them had no idea who he was renting it to. But he had after the shootout, he really had the presence of mind to preserve it as it was in 1935. So when you walk in today, there's still bullet holes in the walls. There's still bullet holes in the furniture. All the floors are original. The sconces are original. Obviously, the windows were replaced. But otherwise, I mean, you can walk up and put your finger in the bullet holes that occurred in 1935.
Wow.
It's a fascinating place.
Yeah. How did you feel when you walked into that place?
Initially, it was a step back in time into 1935.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and another side note to the history behind the house, in 2016, the owners of the house decided that they were going to sell the property, and the new owners did not want the house. They were going to demolish the house because they just wanted the lakeside property. So Marion County, Florida actually said, let us have the house and we'll move it. So they actually put it on a barge and they moved it about 2.5 miles away to a new location. And so the interesting thing is that the spirits went with the house. And so when you walk in, when you walk into it, you really feel that interesting feeling, that connection with history. And, you know, we actually spent several days there conducting these investigations. So we really kind of formed a bond, if you will, with Ma and Fred. And we'd walk in and I'd say, good morning, Mom. How are you? How's it going today? And I really think, again, because of that acknowledgement, that's why we were so successful in the things that we captured.
Yes. Instead of coming in, all right, where are you? I'm going to come out, you know. I mean, I've seen these guys that's so mean and rude, you know, walking into that environment. Like you said, I like your approach, gals. I think it's fantastic because a warm opening of the heart, especially after prayer, to get something warm back. I really believe that.
And that's certainly the experiences that we've had. And that's here again how we approach these investigations and how we approach the location. As I mentioned before, we kind of see ourselves as honored guests in different locations, and so we try to be exceedingly respectful when we go in. At the end of the day, it's their location, not ours, and so we're always mindful of that, trying to be very respectful of that approach.
Wow. Now, okay, what's the next one? You can give me another story if you got one. I love it.
I have so many. Yeah,
I know.
one of the interesting things that we have, I've got two that come to mind.
Okay.
And Jenny and I'll talk about those as we go through them. But the first one was the Lizzie Borden house, which, obviously a large commercial location.
Yeah.
Everybody really knows about the Lizzie Borden house.
Yeah.
It's pretty much a bucket list on any paranormal investigator's list. And so we were fortunate enough to, years ago, we were fortunate to go to the Lizzie Borden house. We rented the entire house, so we had control of the environment. And we were joined by Miranda from Ghost Biker Explorations. So there were 5 females in the house that night.
Wow.
And so while we were setting up equipment, the first thing that we do when we go into these locations is we really scout out where we're going to leave our stationary equipment. So, and as we leave that stationary equipment, obviously we're turning them on. And so we had a voice recorder that was sitting inside the room where Andrew Borden was killed, where he was killed on that couch,
right,
in the parlor there. So Jenny and Michelle were just kind of sitting there, just kind of, just talking between the two of them, while Miranda and Cara and I were setting up some stuff upstairs and downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just kind of talking, and through the voice recorder, we captured a voice. It was a male's voice saying, "I'm standing right here next to you." Neither one of them heard it in the moment, but when we played it back, we captured that male's voice. And then later on during the night, Cara and Jenny were sitting in that same parlor, and again, they were just talking about different things. And we'd already gone to the Ballisca Axe murder house, so they were talking about the differences and the similarities between the Ballisca Axe murder and the Lizzie Borden murders.
Mm.
And Cara just happened to say, "This is our second axe murder house, and that would just be a horrible way to die." And after she said that, the voice recorder picked up a male's voice saying it was. And again, extremely compelling because Jenny and Cara were the only two people in the room.
My gosh.
And just the way that KRISTY tells that story, it just popped into my mind that a lot of the evidence that we get are not in those moments where we are we're trying to capture information, like we ask questions and we sit there for a response. Oftentimes we get good evidence by just us having casual conversations, about the weather,
right,
or something like that, and it feels like the spirit wants to join in,
so just
and to be part of that authentic conversation,
right,
and not so much as who are you, why are you here, when did you die, how did you die, that kind of litany of questions that you have in your back pocket as a paranormal investigator. We get a lot of evidence just in those moments of just us talking and here again being authentic, and then wanting to, it appears like, join in to that type of conversation.
Like an everyday conversation, they're feeling, okay, exactly. Maybe I can let go here a little bit, and
that's one of the reasons why when we go on these investigations, we listen to everything that we capture that night. So if we've got 10 voice recorders running for 10 hours, we're listening to 100 hours of audio.
Yes.
And we don't just pick and choose like, oh, I know we were in this room, so let me listen at that point. We literally put headphones in the voice recorder and hit play, and we start one and we turn it off when we packed up the voice recorder.
Right.
And so that allows us, to Jenny's point, to really capture a lot of things that some investigators might skip or overlook.
Well, do you think they'll ever come out with just a device where you can click it, and if there's somebody in the room, you're going to hear them talk clearly instead of the FM, AM type of thing? But is it honest what you think?
There are other pieces of equipment that do something similar. I think you've got to start with what is actually causing the noise or causing the voice. And I think that's very hard to isolate on some instances. So, there are those that will use telephone apps. Now, we don't use apps in our investigation for a variety of reasons, but there are teams that do. They use apps. There are teams that use different mechanisms to try to listen through portals. Again, we don't use that type of equipment, but there are people out there that are experimenting with different things. So you never know. As technology advances, it absolutely could be something that comes in the future.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Well, we're coming to the top of the hour. The show's about almost over with, but I want to thank you both. Thank you so much, KRISTY and Jenny.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure to have you on, and I'm going to have you on again if that's okay with you guys.
Absolutely. We've got several things coming up this year, so we'd love to talk to you maybe at the end of the year, just kind of fill you in on what we've been doing.
And get that book done for me.
Yes, sir.
I'll buy
we'll
it,
do it.
and we'll advertise it. Trust me. Alrighty?
Thank you.
God bless you, and may the Lord be with you. And may I also say the protection around you folks. I mean, and thank you for what you're doing, because you're really enjoying it and you're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
Be well. Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye.
Well, you heard it, everybody. Unbelievable. The Soul Sisters. Look them up. Look up their webpage. They got more to tell you. That's just some of it, as they said. It's the top of the hour, and I did ask them to be protected because I am a Christian too. So, love you. Good night. I am Glenn Larry. Tune in later. We'll have this on all different types of podcasts. Friend me and also support us if you can. Look up all of the websites, and there's a lot of them out there, I'll tell you. I am Glenn Larry. Again, thank you so very much. Be well, play well, and be healthy, and be safe.